And then I came back from the course, and they're like, "Dude, you skied the face." I was like, "I don't even know where it is." It says, I know, like I think I was quoting a different spot because I never bothered to actually read the sticker. I just wanted a sticker on my bottle. So that's my water bottle story.
Before you leave tonight, I'm going to give you an NCRAW sticker to slap on that.
I'm
baby.
slapping it on.
Yeah.
It might even go over one of the two goats.
There you go.
Multiple goats.
Ready, set, go. Matt Nannis. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing all right.
Did you go to school out here at Western?
No, I didn't. I took a scenic route. I went many places for undergrad, but I never came down here. I went to. I got an early decision. Let's start off with some boasting. I got an early decision to the business school at Wash U in St. Louis.
Dude.
And at the time, I did the math on like what percentage of applicants got in. And it was impressive, and I would tell you if I remembered it. It was like a very small percentage, and I did that solely because of two factors. One, I wasn't. I was blessed with being in a family that was in a financial situation where I didn't have to. College was paid for, or would have been had I been a little more efficient with it, and the restriction I got was I couldn't, or the caveat, I guess, is I couldn't go west of the Mississippi. So
far west.
So Wash U in St. Louis was 10 minutes shy of the Mississippi, and I had I got a big brother's 4 years older than me. I love him to death. I think I loved him to death then too, but there was I put a lot of stuff on that relationship, and I wanted to get into a good school because I was sick and tired of them talking about Andrew. I wanted you to talk about Matt. I mean, that goes back from when he was getting bar mitzvahed. No one was paying attention to Matt, and then I finally was getting bar mitzvahed, and it was like, well, what the fuck? Why aren't you paying attention to Matt now? Because I thought I just connect. Give me two dots. I don't even really need two. Give me one dot, and I'll make up the other one, and then I'll draw conclusions from that line, and I will act accordingly. So I started at Wash U and then transferred mid-freshman year to GW. I don't recommend mid-transfer or mid-year transfer. GW is where my brother went. He was still there. I had friends from high school who were there. So I had a whole bunch of reasons why I transferred, but it was too hard to meet new people. It was really hard because I wasn't really leaving my dorm, but it was so there was a challenge. There were some steps I could have taken, but that sort of crippling fear of. So I always had this kind of hesitation to want to meet anybody. I hid behind. I heard that being standoffish was okay, so I gravitated towards that. Like, oh, I'm just a little standoffish. In reality, I didn't want to get to know you because I was terrified that you were going to figure something out about me before I did. That scared the hell out of me. So I had enough people that I knew at GW from high school. I could just go there, and I knew the role that they knew me as.
You could play it.
So I could play it, right. So I could just still be high school Matt who just happened to be in college. And then, I'll talk shit about Wash U or whatever I need to do to explain why mid-freshman year I transferred from that school to GW. And then it didn't take. So I think I was there, 2 years, maybe 5 semesters, including a summer session. I tell people this a couple of times if they're willing to listen to it. Like I remember getting out of bed really late for an economics final, getting outside of the apartment building because GW's in like Northwest in DC, and I got out of the apartment complex we were in, and I stopped short because I didn't know which direction to turn to get to the building where my economics class was, because I had never been. And that was the day of the final that I was already late to. So
you had intentions to go to the final.
Yeah, I figured I could just ace the final, and I'd be good. I guess. I don't know. It's hard to go back and see what that thought process was. But yeah, school was challenging because I knew I had spent the first 18 years. The one thing I knew was I was good at learning systems, right? I knew, felt pretty confident. I knew what you wanted to hear, and I knew what I had to say. And those rules didn't work in college, and it terrified me. So I took the scenic route. I think all in 8.5 years. Went back home, did construction for a little bit, some high-end finish work, which was phenomenal. Great experience. I don't remember his last name. Bramshell was the company. Great opportunity and experience for me. And did that for like 2.5 years, and then wanted to go to UMass Boston, but UMass Boston was like, you don't even have a GPA. Like, I can't do anything with this. So I had to go to a community college for a year, and I was pretty focused about it. It was a means to an end, and then I got into UMass and finished up with. I mean, I lowered my shoulders. I wasn't trying to be a social butterfly. I was trying to get a college degree. And we could talk about what those motivations were too. But that was important to me. And yeah, I finished. I did all right in school. Maybe I just learned the system a little bit better. That's probably how it panned out. But
That's something you're always strong at.
Yeah.
Come on, teach your horror, man.
I'm pretty good. Well, it's a lot harder now, because I find, and this is just for me, I find that there's it helps to be callous, at least to practice that skill the way that I was practicing it. It's not beneficial to. I will read the room and I will act a part to get what I want. It's hard to do that and attempt to be compassionate and mindful and caring. And though that's not quite yet, that's not my standard approach to life. That's my goal. That's the direction I'm trying to go in. It's a lot harder to manipulate. Like, I'll tell you flat out, like I'll come in here and I'll be like, so I watched the last 4 podcasts, and there's a theme in the questions that you ask, right? And I can tell when you're nodding your head more based on the response that I hear. So like, I have 5 go-to answers that I'm just waiting for you to ask the right question. So I turn myself in. I tell on myself, right? And then I don't know. Today, more often than not, I'm a little more comfortable in I have no idea what the fuck to do. Like that's because I don't think I'm supposed to anymore.
Well, that takes a pretty like significant level of like self-awareness to be able to identify that in yourself, right? To be able to know that like this is what I'm doing, whether you like handle it or respond the most appropriate or compassionate way, but just to be aware of it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it just doesn't sit well with me anymore. I was aware of it. I mean, I was aware of a lot of things for a long time before I decided to take any action to address it or change any behaviors. But I think I don't know. I think the self-awareness thing has been frustrating for me, to be honest. It was a lot. It wasn't easier. That's not accurate. So shifting from like a intellectually motivated, I'm gonna say capitalist, but that's not it. It's a more linear direction through life, right? Being aware that that's my MO, and then not really being psyched about that, and then deciding, setting an intention, and then following through with some actions to live a more heart-centered, heart-focused, heart-first life. Is great on, like, that's a great pitch, right? Yeah. There's a fun, funky spot that I'm still in where the desire to go heart first is there, but I'm still rationalizing and intellectualizing my actions. And that's where, I mean, we were talking about like critic versus curious, right? So like being able to, just talking about this the other day, being able to kind of sit back, like I kick up my feet and I'll watch 1 or 2 or 18 episodes of something on Netflix, right? And I can just take that for what it is. Like there's a couple of shows that I can't stand, but like I've watched enough of them that I'm invested in the characters. And I want to know what happens. Like I don't really care, but like I'm dying to know what happens. So now when I'm having interactions and I feel that anxiety come up, or I'm aware that I don't know if that's genuine. I don't know if I'm speaking my truth to you right now. I think I'm playing you, or I'm trying to. There was a first stage where that was just gasoline on the fire for the critic. Like, I'm a piece of shit. I'm never going to change. I can't grow. Like, even if I'm trying to do the right thing, I just fall back to that. And there's been a nice sort of gradual, I guess, pivot to just being curious about that. Like, yeah, you're doing it again. I wonder what in this situation is a threat. Like, why are you perceiving a threat here? You know? And so it's just been, the mantra's been reframe. It's just been reframe.
What influenced that like shift in intention in the way that you live and trying to attempt to live through your heart?
I'm lazy, right? So the amount of effort that it takes to stay on track with, I can't be authentic. Mm-hmm. And the amount of effort it takes to posture as if I'm being authentic is way more than I'm willing to put in. So if I suffer through some discomfort, which I have, and that flares up, you know, at any given time, to be honest. But if I suffer through some discomfort, I can get to a place where vulnerability isn't scary. I can be genuine and authentic, still attaching to the outcomes to it. You know, I'm not quite there yet by any stretch, but it's just a lot easier to just roll with it.
Yeah. But it takes a lot of courage to face that discomfort and be prepared to suffer through it. Like, would you think that that's something that like prevents a lot of people from taking that step? It's the fear of living through that discomfort, right? And like my experience with like Buddhist practice and meditation was that learning how to tolerate the discomfort and kind of like be able to like sit with it, accept it, but most importantly, just tolerate it. Like, if this feels like it's never going to end, like I cannot make it through this breakup, I cannot make it through this physical injury without returning to numbing myself through drugs and alcohol or whatever the case. Doritos.
Yeah.
But I can't tolerate it, right? I can tolerate it for today, right? I can tolerate it for tomorrow. And as I learned to tolerate that suffering, tolerate through it, for an extended period of time, I was able to learn to be compassionate towards it, right? But I couldn't do that in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't bring compassion to that suffering in the beginning, but I could tolerate it.
Right. And I think the progression, and that's, I mean, we were talking about what do you do in the snowstorm, and I think appreciating that progression is something that I constantly do. I mean, the first, so meditation this is not what I understand to be a unique experience, but meditation to me was I can't clear my mind. So what's the point? My mind doesn't stop. My mind won't stop. Yours, you must not think the way that I do.
I'm different.
Yeah, qualifying out, sure.
Yeah.
And then I got the same, I got very kind of poster suggestions, like imagine the tree with the leaf and put the thought on the leaf, and there's a river by the tree and watch the thought go, or like the clouds
floating by.
Love the clouds. It's great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I still was coming at it as like, I mean, I'll try it, but it won't work, right? And then a friend of mine introduced me to the podcast, the UCLA Mindful at the Hammer, that specific one. The UCLA Mindfulness, there's two. There's mindfulness and mindfulness at the Hammer. And I don't know why, but the ones that are at the Hammer are better. I think it's just a different vetting system of which ones they put on the podcast. But Diana Winston became like my spirit animal.
Okay.
And she has a beautiful definition of what mindfulness practice is. And I won't say it because I won't say it accurately. It'll be a disservice to her presentation of it. It's a willingness to be with what is. It's being open to the present. I guess I will say it. It's being open to the present moment with curiosity and interest and a willing to be with what is. And I think I went through it because I could listen to her for 30 minutes as I was going to bed, and I wouldn't be listening to what I was thinking. And then I started to listen to what I was thinking. And then there was, like, man, I'm really caught up about this, or man, I'm really pissed about this, or I'm really scared about this. And there was I was identifying. That was the progression. It was, I can't meditate to apparently I'm sitting quietly for 30 minutes. Now I'm sitting quietly for 30 minutes and observing my thoughts. But I'm allowing those thoughts that I observe to define who I am. So like, I'm angry, I'm mad, I'm upset, I'm obsessed, I'm failing, I suck at meditating, like any of those thoughts. And then one of the next ones that came up on her podcast was about, she calls it disidentification. So just changing the words. Like it might have taken me, like almost 8 years to finish undergrad. Most of those 8 years, it was an English major. That's what I graduated with. Secondary education and as a concentration in English. And words are very important to me. And they're very powerful. We were talking about storytelling too. And I think that reframe that she came up with, I'm not angry, I am experiencing anger. So I take a half step away from that emotion. It becomes that much easier to separate that emotion from my experience. And I rolled with that for a while. And then, what is it, Tonglen? Is that
Tonglen, yeah.
Is that how you
breathing
say it?
in the suffering, breathing out.
Yeah, and
kindness and compassion.
And that was backwards. They got it wrong, right? Because no, I need this. You guys are fine. I need this. But whatever, everybody's talking about it. Some people who wrote some pretty good books are talking about it. So, I don't have the retreat, and I'm not talking to 5,000 people. So maybe she knows what she's talking about. So I try it, and it's hard. Well, now I don't like it because it's hard. But there was one practice that I heard Pema Chodron talk about specific. I know many do, but the one that I listened to where something clicked was so that the tone, right? That tone is a glimpse. Like that's the crack in my ego that gives me access to my experience. And then whatever it is that I'm identifying, to breathe in and say that I'm not the only one experiencing that, So that's new. I mean, that's new. Because no matter what I'm experiencing, you have no idea how to relate to it. So I sat with that for a while and we could talk about this for the whole time. I just think the progression of, and I don't want to say like, progression implies that the initial parts of it were not of equal value to me, and that's not my experience. My experience is like the fact that I knew, like in that moment, I knew I couldn't meditate. And then in this moment, I knew I wasn't doing it right. And then in this moment, like that 5 minutes, I think I said this in my little thing to it, like that 5 minutes changed my world. 5 minutes. Because it puts this space between every thought that's running through my head. And it allows me to take a breath. Like, all right, yeah, it's another one. They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. Do you want to act on that? Is it worth acting on? What's the benefit? Like, I have time to ask those questions and check in with myself now. I mean, I always had that time, but I'm aware of that time now. And, yeah, I don't know. It's not anything. I don't think it's anything I could have learned in school. I learned it through my experience bouncing all over the place to get through school. So
How long did you like work on your practice before you decided to pursue kind of sharing that with others?
How long?
Like what was that?
I think
Like,
right out the gate.
When did you realize that you needed
to share that?
that you wanted to like take these tools and take these skills, these practical skills, and like apply them to this process of recovery, of healing, of...
It's a good, I don't know if I think, I couldn't tell you the day. I know I was probably 2 years into working my last job before I started Pivot Point. I was working at an acupuncture school in Asheville, and it was like a lunch break, or maybe it was just I was in the kitchen and it was making coffee, and it wasn't like a particularly smooth sailing day for me and someone, or for anyone, right? But that wasn't the point. The point was for me, it wasn't. And someone came in, came around the corner, came in hot, came around the corner, and you felt my back was to the entrance of the room, and I knew that there was something had gone down, and they were excusing themselves into the kitchen. And I think they wanted access to the sink, and I wasn't psyched about the way that they asked for access to the sink. And in that moment, I'm kind of filling in the gaps with details, but in that moment, I kind of chuckled. I smirked, not to them, but I hadn't turned around yet, but I sort of smirked, and I was like, I don't think there's any possible way that this has anything to do with me standing in front of the sink right now. And I turned around and I was like, what's going on? What can I do? And I never, unless I was in a context where that was my mission, that was my goal. If someone's if I'm going to help you move and I see a bunch of boxes, I'll walk up to you and say, hey, what can I do to help, right? Mm-hmm. In this circumstance where I'm in my head about how whatever had happened, my initial response was to turn around and ask them if they were all right and what I could do, or if they just wanted to talk about it. And I mean, I don't bring this up when I take a group out and we go to Upper Catawba Falls. Of course we don't do it now because there's caution tape and it's dangerous and that would be irresponsible. But when there wasn't caution tape, you can get up there, there's climbing ropes, there's 100 people at the lower falls and there's 8 people at the upper falls. So if I'm just happen to be with a group of people, I suggest that we go to the upper falls, and there's ropes and it's muddy, and I don't use many terms it's not formalized, right? It's listen, safest thing to do here is 3 points of contact. If I'm aware of my body positioning and I'm aware of where my center of gravity is, there's way less chance that I'm going to slide down this, even if it's slick. If I'm standing straight up, for me, I'm doing that because I'm posturing, right? I want you to know that, I got this, right? That's who slips and falls and hits their head on a rock or God knows what else. If I don't feel sturdy, the second I put my hand on that branch, I don't even need a good grip, but the second I do that, I disperse my weight differently, and suddenly I'm more connected to the mountain, right? When I'm climbing up the rope, one at a time up the rope in between. I'm using my legs. The rope is just for let's just break this down a little bit. We're not in a rush. That waterfall's been here for a while. It's going to be there when we get to the top. The goal is for us to actually get to the top, right? So that I always see the correlation directly from that rope section to Upper Catawba Falls to that discourse in the kitchen at an office. Right? I'm not going to tell anybody or even suggest that anybody who I'm going on a hike with that 3 points of contact and minding your body position and making sure that the climbing ropes between your legs as you go up this section of rocks, because that'll help you interact with your coworkers at the office. I don't even know how to draw that connection, except to say that I experienced that connection. This is bigger than me. And I think the birth of wanting to share the application of mindfulness, the application of, honestly, anything that is covered in what I understand is covered in a clinical setting, particularly for people in various stages of recovery from anything. I have experienced the opportunity to apply those theories, I mean, evidence-based models, but theories, to apply them in the real world. For me, that avenue is through nature. For me, that happens in the group dynamic as it unfolds on a harder hike than you thought it was going to be. That happens when 2 of the guys in a group of 6 brought water and the other 4 didn't, right? That happens when we're going down Catawba, right? That's my go-to. We're going down that section, and I tell the guy who's going after me, you can use this route, this route, and this route. It's basically like a ladder. You're good. Watch out for this. This footing's pretty slippery, and you should be good over here. I don't tell him, now turn around and tell that to the next guy. Especially because the next guy is the dude who won't clean out the dishes in the sink, and they got this petty bullshit going on. But it feels real and important because there's a lot of posturing is what I observe. And there's this attempt, what I think is an attempt to be like the captain of the halfway house. And I get it 100%. I totally get it, because this is that discomfort with groundless. This is a new surrounding for some people. So I need to establish myself because I'm scared. I'm intimidated. This is not comfortable for me. So if I can hold something over you, at least that part of my experience will be comfortable. That doesn't work going down Section 9 of the river. It doesn't. I mean, like, you can be pissed that, Joe didn't put his dishes away, but if you don't put that shit aside and paddle when we have to paddle, we're hitting that rock. And there's going to be, a yard sale on Section 9. So, like, figure it out. Like, I got a throw bag. I can bring you back into the boat. We'll be fine. It'll be a different experience. And I just, every time I go out with these guys, I tend to get like sort of heads up from the staff, like, these 2 shouldn't sit together, or this happened earlier in the week. I never see it. That's not my experience with these guys. I don't know if it's the autonomy of Pivot Point, like, we show up, we do our thing, and then we leave. Like, I'm aware there are probably consequences to your behavior if I deem it necessary, or I'm told specifically that I need to report certain circumstances. I think that's at my discretion, and I do. I don't enforce those consequences. I'm just there because there's more to experience. Like, I can appreciate watching a marathon of Netflix and not getting high. I can appreciate the significance of that. And as someone told me pretty early on when I decided to make some changes in my life, his response to almost any accomplishment that I thought was like I needed an award for was, that's great. Now what? Like, now what? What are you going to do? So, yeah, I mean, Archer's always available online. That couch is not going anywhere. And one of my friends, we climbed, what was it, Pisgah? I think we climbed Pisgah years ago. Not like on the job, just let's climb Mount Pisgah. And he so casually mentioned when we were at the top looking at that tower, he so casually just goes, and so now when so-and-so asks you what you did today, you can tell them you climbed a mountain. And it's like, holy shit. Like, I'm step at a time, and now I'm at the top of a mountain. And, like, what did so-and-so do today? He probably set, like, the wide receiver record in Madden 2018 or whatever the hell's out there now, and like, good for him. I'm just trying to shine a light on what else we can do. Yeah.
Let's take a step back and like talk about a little bit about what Pivot Point is and like what it is that you guys do and what kind of services that you offer and provide.
So Pivot Point WNC is we're sort of an add-on. We're an auxiliary program that is designed to enhance any existing program. Program initially born from supporting programs of recovery, halfway houses in the area. We had toyed with talking with initially primary care facilities. There tends to be some friction on how we're structured with, being able to take 45 people out at a time. That's not something that we can do. But it's a prepackaged deal, fully insured. Myself and a gentleman we're in the process of him. He's thinking about coming on board, and we're both in various stages of getting certified as substance abuse counselors. Exploring trauma-based work as part of that certification, engaging in mindfulness practices, whether it's books or participating in groups in the Buncombe County area, or whatever we can do to expand our experience with the benefits of mindfulness. I just signed up for a couple of workshops, 5-day kind of tiered workshops that kind of explore the science behind it, which is fascinating. I really didn't think it would be, but it is. And we provide, I guess, an application of whatever you're being taught or exposed to in the structure of your program, you being the client, the resident. We provide an opportunity for that information to be applied to real life experience. So we do that through mountain biking. We do that through exploring the group dynamic when we're going on a hike that's way harder than anything you wanted to sign up for. We do that through the group dynamic as it unfolds on a raft. 2 people have paddled before, and can you follow instructions? We basically take any experience that you would be able to sign up for with anybody, and Pivot Point provides the flashlight, the spotlight on what it is that's happening. We do a mindfulness check-in about a third of the way into each outing or experience, which I think is it's basically a combination of what a lot of primary care wilderness-based facilities do, as I understand it. So it's 4 simple prompts, and it's designed as much for the benefit of the facilitator of those prompts as it is for the participants. It's totally voluntary. It's rare that no one wants to participate, or maybe doesn't want to but does anyway. That's fair too. But it's I feel this way because I think 4 Circles used to call it a fab statement. So I feel this way because I think a hope inside of my control and a hope outside of my control. And then we set some intentions for the rest of the day. And the thought behind that is, man, I can live any kind of life, with or without any kind of substance or using people to change the way that I feel, right? But how often do I formally sit down, slow down, and check in with myself? The answer for me is I don't do it. I do it because it's part of these hikes, right? So for me, I feel like I'm loosely tethered to this plane, right? And the more I get caught up in work or even communication, hanging out with people, just being social, the longer that kite string gets. And when I set this check-in and I model it for them, and there's varying degrees of vulnerability that are appropriate for me to share with these people, with these clients. But I tell them, like, the first and foremost, like, if I don't, I thank them for coming with me, for sharing this experience, because if I don't do this check-in with you guys, it probably isn't going to happen. And then, nobody knows how I'm going to react because there was something that came up 2 days ago that I wasn't willing to look at or whatever. And I feel this way because I think I got all those thoughts running through my head. And every now and again, more often than I'd like, my brain will jump on one of those thoughts. Sometimes it's based on reality and what's actually happening. Sometimes it's not, because my brain craves context. And if you don't give it to me, I'm going to make it up. And if I run with the context that's either, fancied or real, I can spiral out on that. And I can build a whole backstory to it. I'm a big fan of prequels, like going to the theater. I want to know, like, what led up to this. So I'll make it up.
Okay.
I'll make it up. And I will get emotionally attached to the story that I've created in my head. That's my particular brand of crazy. And it will become, if I don't keep an eye on it, it will become the lens that I experience my day. If I can give a voice to that, if I can name that, then it's that disidentification. It's an opportunity for me to take a half step away from just breaking it down. This is what I'm feeling. That's not who I am. This is the experience that I'm having. And I don't know, it kind of loosens up the rigidity that I tend to bring on these outings, on these experiences. And I guess I'm projecting and assuming that the participants are also bringing with them. And then hope inside my control is my familiarity with the language of recovery is, again, like I get caught up on words, and there's a lot of talk about powerlessness and lost the choice. And I think early on, it's easier to apply. So early on, only certain words get through, right? So if the words that get through are powerlessness and no choice, if those are the phrases that get through, then I'm fucked. But I think, taking a step back and pulling that stuff out of context is dangerous. So when I talk about a hope that's inside of my control, like if I'm identifying that I'm feeling hopeful or I'm feeling gratitude because this, and this has changed in my life. Hope inside of my control is I can hold on to that feeling, and I can hold on to those reasons that I'm feeling that way. Hope outside of my control is, the next time the Pats play the Steelers, it turns out a little differently. Mm-hmm. So I think there are elements, almost every element of life that I don't have any say in. But I have the power now, particularly if you're in that house, you tell me you're stuck in that, you could leave. I wouldn't recommend it, but you got a wallet, you got a cell phone, you can go wherever the hell you want to go. You're still there. I mean, I'm not buying it. If you're there bucking against me or bucking against the staff, you're posturing, I think. But if you're still there, then you have the choice to respond in certain ways. And I find that, if it's a hard hike or just because it's outside and there's no fluorescent lights above you, those walls, those masks, those roles that I create that I think I have to play, do they dissolve? I don't know. Maybe they're still there. Maybe it's just, I just take it off.
They're more transparent.
Yeah. It's just a crack. I mean, I don't think anything's happening. It's just another opportunity to apply what it is that everybody's no doubt telling these guys. And I think if I'm more exhausted because this switchback is killing me, I think maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll see it. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. They can kind of put their guard down a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't even know if they set the intention to. Yeah. I think the guard it just happens. Yeah. I think so.
How long you been doing this? How long has Pivot Point WNC been around?
Pivot Point WNC has been in existence since November of 2017.
A little over a year. That's when I filed the paperwork with the Secretary of State and got bona fide. Well, yeah. What led up to you
doing that?
Officially doing it, yeah.
So I was friends with somebody who worked at a local nonprofit house that I think is a phenomenal program, Next Step Recovery in Asheville, and I was hanging out at his apartment, and there was a piece of paper that just looked like copy, right? It just looked like an ad or something that was coming out. And I looked at it, and it looked like a Craigslist post. So I asked him what that was all about. This is 4.5 years ago. And he told me, like, so-and-so and his wife got their dream job up in Connecticut. He was running the outdoor element of their program at the time. They needed someone else. And I was like, oh. And I was like, what's that pay? And he told me, and I was like, oh, have you posted it yet? No, I have to get it reviewed before I can post it. I'm going to post it tomorrow morning. I was like, yeah, don't post it tomorrow morning. So I talked directly to Susan Stater, who's the executive director of Next Step. And she was, gracious and supportive, and welcomed me, kind of taking over that element. So it was like, the Sunday tech, essentially. I drove there. I got in their van. I took the guys out, and we just did what we did. And maybe it was 6 months in. I was meeting with a bunch of people. We're all at, maybe it was longer than that, but we were all at, I think, Bonfire, eating barbecue. And I want to say, maybe it was right after a hike. Maybe it was, the following week. But I was glowing because, like, somebody just, all they did was say thank you as they were leaving the van. And I was like, I didn't even know he was, like, conscious of what was going on. But he thanked me, and that was all it took. I was just glowing at dinner. And I think I told a couple of people. I think Tommy Cook was actually, at that dinner, and I might have suggested that he quit his job, and we figured this out, because I'm getting paid to go hiking. Like, there's something to this. But on top of that, like, this particular resident at this particular program, just that was the first time that I saw, like, he forgot to put his wall back up. Maybe he got back to his apartment and, like, went right back into being a dick. I have no idea. But I made the connection between what we were doing and what was happening.
That he was taking it. Yeah. Taking it off of the trail, taking it
out of the van.
Literally. Yeah.
Literally out of the van. And there were a couple people at the table who I think entertained the idea, maybe just to be polite with me. I'm not really sure. And then at the time I was working at this school, and it was fascinating work, and the president of that school and founder of that school is an amazing human being. Like, just created so many things out of nothing, like Her Against the World, and just I have such admiration for what she's done. And on top of everything she had done, she had created an organization that was such that she could post a job online, someone could apply for it, me, and I could just show up, do what I was asked to do, and get paid. I didn't have to take a leap, It was safe. I like safety. It was safe. And I kind of forgot about it for a while. For a couple of years, I kept working with Next Step, and then fast forward a little bit, and had a particularly challenging day, and told everyone I was going to go take a lap around Montford, and went up and down the street and called a number of my friends who are more familiar with, I guess, that world than I was at the time. And they were like, yeah, so-and-so's looking for an activities director. And in my head, I ran with that. I was like, activities director, that's a full-time job. It's probably got benefits. It's probably this, that, and the other. I'm going to give my notice immediately, and I'm going to get hired. Like, how could they not? And it turned out to be basically the same thing that I was doing on Sundays, only it was going to be on Saturdays. And that was with Firebird Transformations, Jay Joslin's outfit. And their program is this beautiful, heart-centered, just something about walking into that main house that they have is just, it feels so, there's just love in that house. It's very impressive. And so I worked with them for a little bit. And that was like 7 days a week. And I don't know, I think a combination of feeling comfortable with it, and then there was a realization that those Saturdays and Sundays were reviving me to get through Monday through Friday, for all sorts of reasons, but that like it wasn't. I can't wait to get to the weekend so I can tie one off, or I can't wait to get to the weekend for anything other than like I want to pick up these guys and we need to get out. We need to get on the river. We need to do this. We need to do that. And I don't know. I guess it's like anything else for me. I said it probably to myself a lot more than I said it to anyone else, but I said it to one or two people because that made it real. And then I was like, well, let's fucking try it. Let's just try it. And that decision was the snowball, right? So it was like, well, let's just try it. And I was like, great. What do you do? I have no fucking clue. Okay, who knows? Mountain BizWorks knows. So they have a business foundations course. So I signed up for that while I'm still at school, while I'm still at work. And it's the foundations of how to start a business. Like asking questions. Like, what are you doing? What's your target audience? Do you want to be an S Corp? Do you want to be an LLC? Do you want to be a nonprofit? And 3 hours, like I think it was 6 Mondays in a row, 3 hours. And so it was an 18-hour course, and then you get your little diploma, a certificate of completion. And, you know, the lenders come in that are connected to Mountain BizWorks. They come in and they say that, like, well, we actually look at the business plan that you just got through this course. That's part of our assessment. And they have my favorite alliteration I've ever heard in my life so far. They have what's called, creative collateral consideration. So due to a number, almost 2 decades of impulsivity, I didn't have any collateral. So like I can't get a loan, so I'm fucked because I can't make the transition of doing more than I have to do 7 days a week if I want to keep doing this. So I call them up and I don't know. I call them up and I start asking questions and they give me a list of 20 things to do. And then while I'm trying to do 5 of them, I don't understand any of them. So then I have to talk to a whole bunch of other people. And I've constantly, it's been a year and a half, even though LLC was November, it's been a year and a half, maybe a little more than 18 months of like, I have a punch list of 20 things every day, 20 things to do. I usually don't get much knocked off of it. And when I do, the results of getting like 3 things knocked off that list is each of those 3 things has given me 6 more things that I don't know, that I just don't know. And there was a time where that would frustrate the hell out of me, scare the shit out of me, throw my hands up, like, what's the point? And then I think back to that, I don't even remember his name, that fucking kid who just thanked me. It wasn't like a Hallmark moment, you know? He just opened the door and like, I think he forgot his headphones, went back in to grab his headphones, and he was like, hey, thanks, Matt. That was it. Like that one kid, he has no idea, right? But that was...
You wanted more of that.
I wanted more of that, you know? Like that's how I'm wired. That felt right. In that moment, that felt right. And it's been a trip, man. I mean we have some core values. I've had some experiences with various people. So many mentors. So that was one of the best things. The most amazing part of the business foundations class was, I think the first night, it was ask yourself and write out who your allies are, right? And I think I wrote my dad. I might have had 2 other people on the list. And then you turn the page of the pamphlet or whatever, and it's like, who do you know who does this? Who do you know who does this? Who do you know who could do this? Who supports you when you do this? I have so many allies.
That you weren't aware of until you analyzed it.
Yeah.
Via those questions.
Those questions. Yeah. It was like, I don't have...
But when you're asked to do it on your own...
No, because... And I don't know if that's... I'm assuming that's that...
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it. I'm convinced that's that judge, that critic, right? Not the curiosity. And the curiosity is like, damn, how many allies do I have? You know, so-and-so has done this. So-and-so says, hey, you know, do you know anyone who might be able to help me with this? Actually, I know the person who created this wilderness program at a prestigious university who now lives over here and consults with people all over the world and blah, blah, blah. I'll give you his email. Maybe something will happen. And I tell him what I'm trying to do. And I'm Skyping with him tomorrow morning, and we've been talking for about a year now. I mean, like, huge resources. And on a much more intimate scale, like in the community in the Buncombe County area, in the recovery community in general, people who I just assumed would perceive me as a threat, which is a little pompous, I think, in the first as an ego assumption. But yeah, that, you know, whatever I can do to help. And then fast forward to me trying to talk to a prospective client, you know, I hear myself say things like, listen, I know this will work because I see it work, right? I see it work, and I can't really convey that to you. Like, sign up with us for 3 months and you'll see it too, or whatever the pitch is. But at the end of it, from day one, I've always said, like, you know, work with us, don't work with us. You want to help people. We want to help you help people, right? The only way that people get helped is if we all work together and we do this like as a collaboration. This competition, I get it, but I don't think it works. And it was the first time someone was like, yeah, that's a hard pass. We're good. And I was like, cool. And I like did that observing thing. And I was like, I'm actually cool with that. Like, that's fine.
Yeah. And for them to kind of like decline your offer, decline your services, it like really, you know, deep down, knowing what you know now, they probably wouldn't have worked out in the long run because they probably don't operate under the same core values that you do. You know, somebody that like,
yeah,
you know, I don't know.
I don't know either. I think it there. I mean, and I don't know if I'm completely accurately portrayed. Like, I took a lot of those declines personally. You know, one of the mentors
to get to before that point.
Yes. I mean, so like everyone's like, well, listen, sell your experience. You get this benefit from participating and engaging in nature and engaging in a mindfulness practice, whatever that looks like. You know, it doesn't have to be formulaic. So sell your experience. So what I ran with that was, well, if I'm selling my experience, I'm selling myself. So if you decline my services, you're rejecting me, right? So I kind of set myself up to that. How do I not take that personally? And yeah, I mean, so as far as it probably wouldn't have worked out. Listen, I mean, there's elements of helping people that require money.
Yeah.
And ultimately the people that I talk to who are willing to engage in the services that I'm offering, eventually I get to the person who makes the decision based on a bottom line. And that's fine. You know, there's a part of it that's challenging, continues to be challenging for me. And I like that. I enjoy that. I find that challenging. I think that the beauty and value of having the core values that I established with Pivot Point, that you know, that beacon of what it is that I'm working towards, you know, that mission statement. I think if that's the forefront, if it is heart-centered and it is heart-focused and it is, I genuinely want your guys to have an experience, because I think that left to my own device, I'm super limiting on what that experience can be. And that the thought that, you know, not getting fucked up is the solution to getting fucked up is such a... It's a trap, man. It's a trap because it's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true because it doesn't... What's the point? What's the point of that? I mean, if I'm trying to get off paper, I got to do this so that I can get back with my girl, or like, you know, then the parents will let me or set me up with this, whatever. Like, that's cool. Like, but that's the in. Like, that's
where the opportunity is.
That's where the opportunity is. Mm-hmm. And the more that someone, and I've really done this, is like, if I could afford a marketing person, they'd be rolling their eyes right now. But like, the more that someone experiences that, however it is that they get to experience that, I mean, that's I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
I gotta pay for a ridiculous amount of insurance And these certifications don't come cheap. And Wilderness First Responder is not a reasonably priced program, but like I want to be able to provide the safest and most supportive, relevant service that I can to someone who their motivations don't matter, to someone who deserves the opportunity to experience life to its fullest.
Yeah. Regardless of if they're going into it with those intentions, when you meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And that's like, it goes back to like what you talked about with collaboration and mentorship. And that's like these individuals, myself included, being one of them at one point in my life, that like, that's when we need somebody like you to come into our lives and kind of like show us what else is out there outside of working this program to fulfill my obligation to my probation officer.
Yeah.
Or to get my kids back, or whatever the circumstances are that led up to me taking those actions, whether they're genuine or not.
Yeah.
We're doing it, and we're vulnerable, and we're we're ready for somebody like yourself to walk into our life and kind of provide that to us. Because like there's so much like obscuring our thought process as the kind of fog begins to lift. And it's not really like what you mentioned the flashlight, right? Shining that flashlight.
Yeah.
It's not really like what we're focused on. But when you turn that flashlight on, it's where your attention goes. You can see it. I love it, dude. I love that, man. Outdoors has always been something in your life?
So I would have said yes. I don't think that's accurate. So I grew up outside of Boston, and New England is certainly, I mean, it's a different environment, but it's certainly an outdoor enthusiast dream. You have to drive a lot farther than you do out of Asheville. I mean, it's a 20-minute drive, and you're on the oldest mountain chain in the world. And but up, we would go to, like, I had friends who did rock climbing, and we would sign up for rafting, and we would go on some hikes, and there would be camping trips, and there would be nature involved. But a lot of the people that I participated in those activities with also had other proclivities that made me feel more comfortable participating in also. So like there were other things getting passed around the campfire when we were camping out, even if we were going to, Mount Rumney in New Hampshire to go rock climbing the next morning. And that was another one of those roles. Like I would put that, I'd wear that hat. Yeah, let's go rock climbing. That sounds great. Let's make sure we get to the campsite early though, so we can, do other things too, to just fulfill the experience. Like let's make the most of this weekend. But I never really, it was a role. I mean, that participation was authentic as far as I genuinely loved the people that I participated in those activities with. But I just, there was a lot of going through motions. I wasn't engaging. I wasn't engaging in my surroundings. I was tolerating the activity because it meant when we were done, we were going back to the campsite and we could party. And when I first moved down here, there's probably Tennant Mountain, I think. But just, it was still smoking cigarettes at the time, and was doing the switchbacks, or did like the Art Loeb spur to get to the top, and then did the ridge walk and got lost in that, like, I don't know, from the top of that spur to the plaque on Tennant Mountain. It's just like, if you're not paying attention, it's all these rabbit trails, and you're like, and I'm back at the parking lot. I don't know what just happened, but it was this genuine, I guess I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was present and I was aware that I was present in that for that first time. And I mean, like I said earlier, like one thing. So like I was present, I was on a mountain. I made that connection. And so far that connection has been consistent with me.
When you're outside, when you're in,
when I'm outside, it's something that since I moved here has not. Has to happen. Mm-hmm. Has to happen. hikes after I lived out in Black Mountain for like 2 years, and after work every day I went on a hike in the Montreat area with my dog for like 2 hours every day. I get up early Saturday morning. I'd go like 10 minutes up and down the hill to Old Fort and go to the Upper Falls, and I'd sit quietly for 5 minutes at the Upper Falls. Like I'd go drive 15 minutes, hike for an hour,
Sit 5.
to sit for 5 minutes, and it's life changing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that spot up there is ridiculous anyway. But since coming here, and you know, there was a lot of reframing before I came to Asheville and to this area, to Western North Carolina in general. And I started seeking different stuff, man. I mean, still, so there's this, I think it was 2014, there's this TED Talk by this dude, what's his name? Like Seth Prebatch, maybe? It's a TED Talk about the gamification of the world. And he was like a Princeton dropout or something, and he started this online app called Scavenger. And it was like, you know, go to this taco shop, take your foil from your taco, make it in the shape of a bird, take a picture of it, post it on Scavenger, and you get 5 points. And if you get 20 points, you get a free taco. So he talks about like this layer that social media had put on the world, right? So social currency. And then he was just kind of going the next level. He was literally gamifying society through this app. And at the time, I'd been here maybe 6 months. At the time, I was like, he's right. I mean, he's on to something. I mean, social currency is the currency. Gamifying, I guess it resonated with me because I guess I had been doing that my whole life. I mean, that was the manipulation. That was how I read a room, and it was so I could get, you know, the power-ups, the one-up, you know, the Mario mushroom that makes him the big Mario. Like, I was just doing that in real life. And it was only going on in my head, but that was part of how I justified my behavior. So I think what ended up happening after a bunch of hikes and meeting a bunch of like amazing, beautiful people around here is I was like, I don't have to dismiss this gamification of the world and my experience, but I can change the rules to it. So now, instead of that like head-centered approach to life, maybe the rules are, what can I do to get my one-up points in living a heart-centered life? So, you know, I have this sort of lens of how I think my knee-jerk, my instinctual desire to engage in my surroundings is, and that wasn't serving me anymore. And I struggled for a bit trying to get rid of that. So I think what I've done is just sort of, I just changed the rules a little bit. So, you know, I instead of participating and engaging and telling you this, that, and the other, like maybe I disengage from the situation and allow you to have your experience. Then I'm not responsible for it. And then it's a lot more free. And then you and I can have like a shared experience, and it's 50-50, you know, like I thought life was hierarchical and I needed to be at the top, but when it's horizontal, there's no top. It doesn't matter. You know, so yeah, I don't know when it clicked. I think I know it was on a trail. Things just fell together, man. I mean, the more I try to just genuinely participate in what's going on.
What originally brought you to Asheville?
I had played out any other option. Yeah. I was actually in my apartment in Brookline, Massachusetts. I thought I was in my apartment about to go in a caravan to upstate New York for a wedding. And what ended up happening is, I want to say 15 people, but I don't think it was quite that many. A number of people.
Felt like 50.
Felt like 50. A number of people started trickling into my apartment. After this woman who I had never met before, who just helped herself into my apartment. And suggested that we sit down on the couch and said something akin to, we all love you, we all care about you, we're all a little concerned about the decisions that you've made and continue to make in your life. And then proceeded to ask my friend Josh to read a letter that he had prepared. This was all very real, because I checked several times that it was in fact real. To read a letter that he had prepared stating how my behavior was affecting him, which was shocking that my behavior affected anybody but me. And then at the end of that letter, so however many people there were, probably like 12, but at the end of that letter, there were supposedly, and I was told this, consequences. So it was like, here's my request, and if you don't do this, here's a paragraph of consequences. So he had said something along the lines of, I'm going to plead with you, whatever his words were, to stand up, give me a hug, tell me you love me, and then get on this plane. And there might have been a little more to it. And I immediately assessed the situation, and I stood up. And like, there was, in my head when I play this back, there was like a tearjerker moment, right? And I gave him a hug. I told him I loved him, and figured we'd, like, you know, where are we going? And then everybody lined up, and it worked, because my goal was, I'm not listening to 11 more of these letters. You gotta be fucking kidding me.
It's time to go.
Yeah. So, and it never occurred to me that I could just
Bolt.
run out of it. It didn't until I think I was at my connection in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That the woman who had come in was like, yeah, I'm just really glad you didn't run. I was like,
Run?
I didn't know that I could have ran. Like,
that was an option?
It seemed that Josh didn't say I could run.
Yeah.
He said I could do one of these two things. So, yeah, so I gave everybody a hug, and there was a lot of crying, as I remember. Maybe I just want there to be a lot of crying, because it makes it more dramatic. But, you know, whispers of like, you know, good for you, this is great, you're brave, all that stuff. I was just terrified of, I mean, I did everything that I did in my life up until that point to avoid consequences. And the thought that each of these people who loved me way more than I loved myself at the time, we're going to share consequences in front of it, not just me, but everybody else. Like, you were going to air our shit to them. Like, that I was not about to let that happen. That was the only reason that I stood up and agreed. So I went down to Florida for 90 days, June, July, and August of 2013, which is not a time to be in Florida. And then was about to come back up to Boston, and it was suggested that maybe something else would be better. It wasn't suggested quite that way. I was pretty much told that, like, everyone up in Boston they weren't sure that me going back to Boston was a good idea. So all the plays that I had in my head about what I was going to do, they squashed those pretty quick. So I went, you know, so-and-so said, I know a friend who, you know, might be able to help you out in Asheville. And I was not familiar with Asheville. I was like, why should I go to Tennessee? I really thought she said Nashville. And I got on a plane and just started, you know, we came down into the mountains at Asheville Regional, and some guy I'd never met picked me up, and I mean, and I found myself in Asheville. You know, it was sort of, at that point, I wasn't psyched about my situation. I bucked a good amount about my situation. But I knew for someone who always felt like I could read a room and have a play, I didn't have a play. The only play I could think of was like, I should just get on this fucking plane. And then when the guy rolled up in the van, asked me if I was mad, I had an opportunity there to be like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
Matt who?
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of universe pushing me in the right
Sure.
direction, pretty much at every turn. And met some people that I'm still super close with. And met so many people that I find it takes very little time these days to become like intimately close with people.
When you're living with pure intentions, right? When you're living that lifestyle, and not like masquerading behind this persona that this character that you're trying to play. Right.
Like, and that's a shock too. But like to be like Steve, like what makes you tick, man? Like what gets you up in the morning, and like what drives you, and like what fuels you?
Having these conversations right here.
Really?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I don't want to know that information for any other reason than like I want to get to know you.
Yeah.
That's new to me.
Yeah.
That's a new, like that sentence. I don't really have a play here. I'm really looking for one. Like eye contact is a new concept to me.
Yeah.
Hugging people I just met is a new concept to me.
I love you, bro. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love you back, man. I mean, this is not there are no rules.
When along this journey, when did you like accept that this is what life was? That this is the authentic lifestyle, right? That this is living. All the things that you just described.
When did I accept that?
When did you learn it? When did you accept it? When did you realize it? Like, oh fuck, I've been doing this. I've been playing this game the wrong way for.
So there was maybe it's like 3 years ago. There was a relationship that was a very short. Well, it wasn't very short. That was short. It was like 6 months. Is that short? That's not that short.
Depends on who you ask, man.
Yeah. So it didn't feel short. It felt significant. It felt profound. It still is an experience in my life that I'm certainly grateful for. And it ended. And the way that it ended was shocking to me. My behavior shocked me. And it took a lot out of me. I've been living in I wasn't living the way that I was living up in Boston. I had sort of embraced new approaches, new principles, new behaviors, and embraced them in a context of a bunch of people who were embracing similar things, and found a lot of safety in there, and had a nice cocoon of people who were all reading the same shit and saying the same stuff and meeting up at the same places. And in that circle of people, which was expansive, I mean, the immediate people that I considered that I actually knew outside of the context of certain circumstances wasn't huge, but like it was very safe. I had a community about me.
Layers of safety.
Layers and layers of safety. And so when I had set intentions of, which I did from the get-go because it was suggested that I did, to take actionable, to perform gestures of faith and an expression of loyalty to a new way of living my life, I only had to apply them to that circle because that was my life. That was all I knew and all I engaged with. And I could get through any job for 8 hours because I could just call somebody who was probably suggested to do the same thing. And then circumstances presented a very clear, we were talking about the tone of the bell and how that serves as sort of cracking the ego and giving me a glimpse. So without getting into it, I got a glimpse. And it terrified me. It scared the shit out of me. It didn't align with anything that I thought I had I'm gonna say perfected. And it was an awakening that I was still I mean, that gamification thing was still in effect. I was still posturing. I knew how to speak. I learned the game. I knew how to speak. I knew certain words and how to reference certain things, and even to physically posture myself so that in certain contexts and certain circles, I had a better chance of being accepted. This was my thought. It didn't occur to me until a couple weeks after this realization that a number of people in those circles were actually being authentic, and they accepted me even though they knew that I was full of shit.
Regardless of the game you were playing,
Right?
or
They didn't
story
care.
you were
They
telling
didn't
yourself.
care. Exactly. So, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it opened my eyes to a whole bunch of feelings that I had not felt before. It raised an awareness of how much of a mystery everything is. Like I don't have anything figured out. I don't have any that punch list of 20 things and I get 3 done and then 6 more from each of those 3. That's not just pivot point. I mean, that's
life.
That's me getting through life. I had someone very early on used to tell me, he used to hold up a ruler, or I think it was a broom. Maybe it was a baseball bat. I don't know what it was, but it was big enough that you could balance it on your finger, right? And he's like, you seem to go through your life like trying to find that one point, right? Like relationship, job, house, nope, too much, dog, maybe, cool spot, like you need a cool spot. And then like, what kind of car do you drive? All right, cool, you got it, right? And this shit just balances. It's like, here's the problem. Life doesn't work that way. You got to turn that shit up and down. And if you've ever bounced a baseball bat on your hand, you can keep it up there, but you're constantly moving, constantly moving. And I think that's what we're talking about. You know, I think that was the moment. That awareness was the moment. And it meant that I had to it meant that what I was doing wasn't serving me anymore. Because that behavior that I had put out there, I could excuse it. I couldn't accept it. I could talk my way through it. You know, I could read a couple of books and throw some theories as to why it happened, why I behaved the way that I did. But it wasn't sufficient. And the one takeaway that I got is this was also like a birth of the pivot from judgmental to observer. And that judge is still there, strong. But it was one of those first opportunities of just being curious of that behavior. And it was what the conclusion I came to was there are walls that I didn't know that I had up. There are things that I'm not willing to experience and engage in. And what that means is I'm denying you getting to know me. You know, that fear that I used to have of like, I didn't want to get to know you because I didn't want you to know me before I did. That was still playing itself out. Now, like I see you sitting across the table from me, Steve, and if you see something in me that I didn't know yet, because I can genuinely engage in a conversation with you, you get to teach me that. I hadn't experienced something jarring enough to make me open to that possibility.
You were never willing to make yourself vulnerable enough to that experience.
Hell no. To many experiences.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, I wasn't behaving the way that I used to behave. So that was enough. I was convinced that was enough because that was bad.
As long as I could change that.
Yeah. Then that, because that was the problem, right? Yeah. So I changed that. I wasn't behaving that way anymore. And then all the things under the things. Decades
of things.
Were still there. Mm-hmm. Well, what the fuck's that all about?
And where do you start?
What I didn't know what to do. Like, how can? I mean, it took about a year to appreciate that that heart ripped out of chest feeling that was a gift, that like that I could feel that.
Would you please go on and say that one more time? What you just said?
That it took a year
To do what?
to appreciate that heart ripped out of chest feeling was a gift.
Appreciate that heart ripped feeling of out of your chest was a gift, right?
Yeah.
Dude, that's powerful, man.
Yeah. Well, it was a shitty year, man.
Yeah, but that's powerful to be able to say what you just said, that you appreciate it now.
It's why I'm sitting here.
Mm-hmm.
It's why I'm not sitting in a lot of places right now. That experience, that sort of like, I don't know. I went from the practice team to
the big leagues, baby.
Maybe just minor. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I'm. We were talking about this before, like that was where it was a shift from there's a right way to do stuff and there's a wrong way to do stuff, and because I'm not doing the wrong way, I must be doing the right way. Very dualistic. It's this or it's this. Is that dualism?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's this or it's this,
Mm-hmm.
and because it's not this, it has to be this. Easy conclusion. I'm the man. I'm doing great. Give me credit. Give me accolade. Give me the gifts that I was never told I was going to get, but I figured you just skimmed over the part where I get these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I experienced some of those things, and it must have been because I wasn't doing the bad thing anymore. I mean, for me, I get how conveniently bullshit that is, you know, like all this stuff is practice, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I used to cringe. I still cringe when I hear like, you know, they're just lessons. You can learn from this. Like anytime someone speaks to me through their experience and it's poignant and relevant to my current experience, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Partly because, well, you didn't learn that until you experienced it. And partly because of how crystal clear even that reaction is, that how it just points out like how desperately I want to have a grip on things, and assuming that I was further along, as if there was somewhere to be further along towards or something like that. If I'm working towards a goal, towards a bunch of ideals, and I'm behaving the way that I do and they don't match up, then I'm further away than I thought I was. And I don't know, I think for me the reframe starts with the words and with the narrative that I tell myself, and then eventually, and it's never on a consistent timeline, but eventually I start to believe that new narrative. And then the old narrative doesn't necessarily go away, but like that mic kind of dies out. Like that becomes the white noise in the background.
Turn the fader down a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's like...
And it's probably a slow progression, and then every now and then it might peak a little bit.
It kicks up a little bit. I get a hot mic every now and again.
Uh-huh.
And it's... Even that is... Because when I'm in that moment and that old narrative pops back up, my initial response is like, well, fuck, I'm not doing as good as I thought.
And you feel like you're almost like starting over again.
Yeah. So I got to pick it all back up.
But that's the practice.
Right. That reframe has been huge for me. Huge for me. I mean, every experience that I have. So I went to, this was the one of the biggest ones for me of late, is I went out to, where were we? Carolina Beach for the Addiction Professionals of Western North Carolina Conference. And I think it was the last day. It was gorgeous out there. And whoever was involved with cleaning that place up, did a hell of a job. I know there's still a lot of things going on over there. And what I'm speaking to is the aesthetics. So it's a lot of superficial shit that I'm saying was impressive, because I didn't really have time to like hear the stories, but still heard a few. But one of the last workshops that I was in was yoga and stress, and some mindfulness elements to it as well. And one of the exercises was like, stop trying to eliminate stressors from your life. because life is stressful.
You never will be able to eliminate all of your stressors.
It's like I can't meditate because I can't clear my mind. It's like, well, of course you can't clear your mind. No one said meditation was clearing your mind. And those who did have an interesting relationship with meditation. So we talked about hypotheticals and like, how do you react when you feel like that situation that's confronting you is a threat? Right now, for me, if you're threatening me or I perceive a threat, I wall up or I puff up. So I wall up, I isolate, I have to react, back's against the wall. There's a lot of aggression that starts building up already. Or I like cocoon, right?
Yeah. Or bail out. Peace.
Oh yeah, gone.
I'm gone.
Yeah, you know, I wish they had told me I could have run.
Yeah.
Those are my moves. Mm-hmm. The second that same situation is perceived as a challenge, when someone's challenging me, I don't know where this came from, but my verbal response immediately is, what can we do? Like, I'm already saying the word we. What can we do to meet this challenge?
How do we overcome it?
Yeah. So I'm acknowledging that there's a solution there. I'm saying we instead of me against this threat.
Let's figure this thing out together.
Yeah. So that has been, that's been my experience. It's just, I don't cling as long as I do to even the things that serve me. We were talking about this too. Like, if I do A, B happens. And if I do A 10 times in a row and B happens 10 times in a row, I'm going to lock onto the fact that A causes B. Problem is, on the 11th time when A causes D and I don't like D, my world's gone to shit. I don't know how to deal with it. So inviting every opportunity is another example of groundlessness, of changeability, of mutability. At least having that, being able to accept that it's possible that I don't have an idea of what's going on, because I don't like that idea. That's not like my go-to thought. But being able to appreciate that maybe this happened because this is what had to happen. And maybe if I do A, it has nothing to do with B. Maybe that was just the correlation that was happening, like not causation type thing. It allows for like a Technicolor experience. Like I went from that dual, that black and white, little bit of gray, and then we upgraded to color, and color was great. The problem was it was color with basic cable, right? And then I lost the basic cable, and then I felt like, that same critic in my head. Everybody else had the DirecTV package, and everyone else had the NFL network, and I had channel 4, 5, and 7. That was it. I don't know how far I can go with this metaphor. And then I just stumbled across a smart TV, man. I got all the Netflix and Hulu passwords, and I'm live streaming, and I'm trying consistently to walk through each day with an open heart and an open mind. And when that becomes the goal, the only goal, I don't know, it's easier to pull myself back to that, to return to that, than setting, I guess, more tangible goals and intentions for the day. I mean, I find I'm too easily distracted, but I can do anything heart-centered. I can do anything with an open mind. I can approach every circumstance with an open heart and an open mind. So when I do that, it's all gravy. Like, it's all an opportunity.
When you first started meditating and you kind of started this process, mindfulness practice, like, did you pursue any type of formal training where you did go into like retreats? Was it mostly like just kind of personal investigation? And
it was curiosity.
Yeah,
it was curiosity, and then having a couple of friends who were equally curious and had positive experiences with it, and then podcasts, and then some books. participating in a few groups, not a lot, but a few groups that where there was a meditative element, like an intentional meditative element to the gathering, and I think it was. I gravitated to the benefits of it pretty immediately, and
Because you experienced the results, or
yeah, because of the I was so reactionary to everything that the second there was the moment there was like 2 seconds between a thought and an action, and like the moment there was space to reflect, it was very apparent, because that was a new experience for me.
And the more you do it, the more space.
And experiencing a day in that space, or like in the company of that space, is I don't think there are words to that. It's more. There's more magic in that space than in anything I had experienced when I was consuming things that were marketed to create such an experience.
Yeah, that's freedom. It's real. It's genuine freedom.
Yeah.
Genuine freedom. How do you take that? How do you take everything that you just described? And you've laid out a lot of wisdom tonight, brother. Right? How do you take that and apply it in the field, right? On the trailhead, on top of the waterfall, to like maybe that individual who's a little resistant, who's not stoked to be out there. And I'm assuming you guys are like year round, so it's 20 degrees out, and y'all are.
Yeah, I got snow in my boot.
You got snow in your boot, right? He's not happy to be out there. Like, how do you meet that with an open heart, right?
I think it's a good question, and I guess the most accurate answer is I'm not entirely sure. I can tell you how I've met it up until this point, and that's often poorly. I do want, so there's this interesting, it's a very subtle but very definite difference between I have experienced this as a result of this, and I just want, I would love for you to also experience it. And here's what, and saying, the difference between that and saying, do these 4 things and you'll experience this, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of variables. The fact that the individuals that I share experience with, I mean, I say that as often as I do because that's all I believe that I'm doing. You're coming at this with everything you're bringing. That's part of that check-in, man. Like, let's acknowledge and give a voice to everything that I'm bringing to this hike or this whatever.
Lay it on the table.
What did I bring? Yeah. Like, I want nothing to do with this. Who the fuck is this guy? I hate this. He doesn't even make his bed. How come he gets to do this cool thing? Like, all of that. Let's put it out there. Give it a voice, because otherwise I bury it. That's what I do. There's a lot of projection on my part when I facilitate these groups. Like, I consider the things that I do, and I try and create a space where it's safe to have. Maybe that's it. I don't want to teach you anything. I think the ability to, what do? Pass on that experience? To create an opportunity where someone else can have an experience, not mine, is, the elements are holding space. That's all I got to do. I got to hold space. I'll tell them that I'm going to be in the front of the hike for the majority of it because I know when to turn left and I know when to turn right. I also tell them, because it's true, anytime anybody wants to take a break, please speak up, because know that I promise you I also want to take a break. Like, I'm tired too. The mere fact that I'm not the one waking them up in the morning, I'm not the one asking them how many meetings they hit. I'm not the one asking them if they finally got a sponsor. I'm not the one enforcing any consequences if they aren't doing whatever their program deems that they need to do to progress. I don't know so-and-so. Like, I don't know client A as client A who's level 0, lives in the entry house, and fucked up because he did this to so-and-so. Like, that's not my context. You're Nick.
That's it.
That's all I got. You know? And maybe you're required to do this for the first 5 weeks of your stay. Even then, like, I'm probably not going to see you next week for any number of reasons. Either because you're like me and you figured out that if I get a job that meets on meets on Sundays, I don't have to go, or wait, I can go to church and not have to do this. That's fine. I don't engage with any of that shit. I don't care. You know, in the most loving way, I don't care. You know, so I guess the power behind observing, the power behind having observed, having the privilege to see something happen. I don't know what the hell it is, but it's a phenomenon, right? Like, you feel it. You can't really pin it, and if you do, you're kind of taken away from it, I think. But it's such a profound. I don't know, it's tough. It's such a, this is right. This right here is right. It's such a one of those moments.
Yeah.
It's that sweet spot. It's that perfect swing. It's like, you know, if I don't know if you play golf, the practice swing's always better than the real swing, right? So that last, for me, and I never play, but like, there's like, I do like the random not thinking about it swing until there's that one swing, and I'm like, that, okay, now do that again with the ball in
duplicate
front.
it. Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
So the experience of what I see when that kid says thank you is so profound, and that is tangible. I can't describe it, but it's you can feel, you can taste it. Like on a visceral level, that experience is, you can touch it. Is enough to keep me the fuck out of the way and allow you to have, because I don't want you to have a specific experience. I just want you to have an experience. Just experience this, you know, like so I'll tell you this, there was a guy when I first started doing this who was late to the van. And like, at this point, this was early on. So like, at this point, if you were on my list, like, that was important to me. I had things to do. And, so I knocked on his door, and he's still in bed, and he rolled over. I was like, hey, we'll call him Jake. I was like, hey, Jake, you know, we're trying to take off in like 10 minutes. Are you good to go? Do you want like another 5? Rolls over in bed, tells me to go fuck myself. Says, fuck you. I fucking hate nature. I'm not coming. So I say, all right, man. I mean, to be frank, I don't really need that energy in the van or on the trail. So like, I told Jake, I was like, listen, man, you know, that is your choice. I don't really know. I was like, I'm pretty sure there are consequences because I know you're kind of new here. I don't know what they are. I'm going to tell so-and-so that you don't want to come. We don't need to get into the
fuck you,
the fuck
buddy.
yous or whatever. Like, that's cool. And I don't know how you fucking hate nature, but like, that's cool.
It's your business, not mine.
Yeah. So I don't engage with it. And I'm like, you know, I hope you have a good day, man. I mean, I don't see how the blinds are drawn. You're probably not going to get out of bed, but good luck. Have a good day. So, and that's it. And we go on our hike and we have a blast, or it sucked. I honestly don't even remember. The next week, Jake is leaning against the van before I even pull up to get the keys. He's got his shades on. He's got his earbuds on. He's smoking a cigarette, and he gives me like a,
what's up, dude?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm pretty sure that it's the dude in the bed who rolled over and told me to go fuck myself. But I'm not entirely sure because it was a 30-second interaction. So I get the keys. We go. He's in the way back. He's there. Shades are on. It's not sunny. Shades are on. He's listening to his music. He's looking at his phone the whole time. He's like physically there, but he's not engaging in this. And it's almost, I'm still taking this stuff very personally. So like, this is an affront to me. And then we park and we go up. It's actually that same mountain. It's Tennant Mountain. We go up and we do the switchbacks, and we stopped like 18 times because everybody, like, I can't breathe. This is too hard. And yet every time we stop, people are smoking like 15 cigarettes. And like, all right, that's cool. Like, my only request is if you're going to smoke cigarettes, they're going in your pocket. I'll give you a trash bag, but we're not leaving that shit on the trail. And so we go, and he's in the front, and I don't know what that's all about. I if I'm not in the front because it's complicated, I like to be in the back because I kind of like to watch how things unfold. And we go, and we're all together, and he's probably smoked a pack and a half of cigarettes at this point. And we make it to the top. There's like that plaque on that rock at the top of Tennant Mountain. And if you're standing right, I mean, you got 360 views. It's pretty outstanding. And I'm not really sure why I'm further back. Probably just because I'm tired and out of shape. And I see him. He's got the huge headphones on and the shades that are totally unnecessary. And he's already done with one pack of cigarettes, and he reaches for a fresh pack, and he starts packing it. And he's focused on packing, and he takes off the wrapper, and he puts it in his pocket, so I'm happy about that. He takes off the foil, and he puts that in his pocket, and he takes out a cigarette. And while he puts it up to his mouth, he looks up, right? And he looks up, and then he looks around. Then he takes his shades off. Then he takes his earphones and puts them around his neck. Then I see his chest go up and down. And his shoulders kind of ease up and go back a little bit. And the son of a bitch smiles, right? Cigarette goes back in the pack. Pack goes back in the pocket. I'm seeing this from like 20 feet back, and I'm like biting my tongue because I want him to know. I guess I want credit. That's really what's going on. I want credit. I want to shine a light on this. And before I can do anything, thank God, he catches himself or realizes that he forgot about the mask and the wall and all that bullshit that he put up, and he puts the shades back on. He puts the headphones back on. Doesn't put a cigarette back in his mouth, but that's it. Like, it's back to, I'm not here, this sucks, I fucking hate nature. And it takes a lot of effort on my part on the way back down the trail, back to the van, to not point out to him, like, I fucking saw you enjoying yourself, you son of a bitch. You know, like, because I want to do it playfully. I want to let him know. What do I want to let him know?
But that moment, right?
That's right. So that's I mean, that's the mission statement.
Yeah.
Because it happened, and it doesn't matter what it was. Like, for that split second, he let go of all that bullshit that he convinced himself he needed to bring with him, posturing for I don't know who, to prove I don't know what, and it didn't happen. Maybe it happened elsewhere, but like, the reason Pivot Point exists is because it enables me, it offers me the opportunity to share that, not even really participate in it. I'm just trying to set the deck so you can play the hand.
Yeah. I think like facilitating it in a way, like
that's the best word.
You're presenting it. You're setting up the environment or circumstances for it to happen, whether it happens or not.
Yeah.
But that moment where he let his guard down, you know, he was present for 10 seconds, 5 seconds,
Dude, that
30
smile.
seconds. That's exactly what you described with your meditation practice is that space between thoughts where he let his guard down. He was there. He was present. He took a deep breath of that fresh mountain air, right?
Yeah.
And it's about creating more of those moments. And we do that I do it through my formal practice. I do it through exactly what you're creating for these individuals, through hiking like I did today, and exercising and my yoga practice and all of those things. That's how I create it in my life, but it's unique to every individual. And like, what really worked for me specifically in early recovery was those little glimpses. Whether I had my guard up or not, I tasted it, I recognized it, and I was able to take it back and still apply it in my day-to-day life, you know, later on down the road. But it was just those impactful moments, whether he recognized it or admitted it at that time. It was those impactful moments. Where'd the name Pivot Point come from? Because I've heard you say like pivot, the word like 3 or 4 times tonight.
So one of those moments of opposition, someone was trying to engage, wanted to engage in an opportunity for there to be like a power dynamic, right? And someone else who wasn't ready to go or had set the scene so that there was gonna be conflict. That was my assumption. Like, this is how I'm going to create a situation where Matt's coming in and is gonna be like, get in the fucking, or whatever that motivation was. And it was like, the reason I think that is it felt like a very prepared. It just felt really polished what he came at me with. And I opened the door and I was like, hey, are you coming? And the response was, no, I'm not. It was pretty similar, man. He didn't say fuck you to me, but it was, I'm not fucking going hiking. Like, what if I hike? If I don't go hiking, I'm going to relapse. And I don't know if it was the smartest thing to say, but I reacted. I didn't respond. I reacted. And I looked him dead in the eye and I said, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard of in my life. I was like, if you don't come on the hike, you're going to relapse? So this doesn't make any sense, dude. I was like, you know what's going to happen today for you if you don't go on the hike? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. You probably won't even see the sun coming through the window. But you can stay here and do that. It's not a this or that. Like, that's not what's happening here. My understanding and my experience is if you make a decision, and we talked about it earlier, you make a decision to kind of restructure what it is you're putting in your body by making a decision to stop putting certain things into your body. That opens endless possibilities. If you don't do this, this happens. Nah, man, it doesn't work like that. And if you don't do this and it happens once, that's maybe coincidence, synchronicity, whatever word you want to use. You don't do this one thing, you've opened up 360 degrees of possibilities. You're at that pivot point right now. All I'm trying to do is like turn you on that fulcrum, like I just come on the hike and then tell me after the hike that you fucking hate hiking. Cool, man. We'll go snowshoeing next week. We'll see if you like that. No, let's go mountain biking. You want to get in the raft? I got paddle boards. Like, what do you want to do? Let's have an adventure. Let's have an experience. Where do you want to go today? Because I don't know, man. What's the point if you're going to stay in the apartment and only go outside for the 5 minutes it takes to smoke that cigarette? You're going to meet the same people who I'm sure are lovely, who are on the same cigarette smoking cycle as you. Like, you get a great view of that apartment complex parking lot, but like, it scares me when those yellow lines become friendly and like, that's my backyard. That's not your backyard. Your backyard is this majestic, oldest mountain range in the world. Yeah. Like, people draw such energy from this place. Yeah. Everyone I meet, for the first 2 years I was here, someone would tell me that they were like 66 years old or something. And like, I thought I was older than them. Like, everyone's 15 years younger here. And there's a correlation between that and how much time they spend outside. Yeah.
And we're just privileged to have access to that.
So much access to it.
Like,
it's
what's next for Pivot Point, man? What's your goals? Give me some long-term goals, man. What's on your radar?
So we talked about the thing under the thing under the thing. I feel like there've been some moments on hikes where after the check-in, actually, certain individuals, whether it's bravado or whatever it is, they're sort of, their body posturing changes and their dynamic and engagement in the group has changed, and it became clear to me that it was possible and pretty much likely that the potential of those check-ins, as informal as they may be, could maybe touch on things that were just unpacked in a group or individual therapy session or something like that, and that I was ill-equipped to engage in that period, there were a couple of times where like I found myself walking faster to catch up with, or walking slower to slow down with that person. And like, fortunately, I was mindful enough of my own motives to be like, dude, that's great, but you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And like, this is not appropriate. So right now it's a push for training. It's a push for applicable knowledge. It's a push for embracing the community. I think that there's a couple of long-term goals that I'm hesitant to mention, that are a little more expansive than just driving within 80 miles of the Buncombe County area. Part of the reason it's Pivot Point WNC, is that I don't see any reason why there isn't a Pivot Point Pacific Northwest and Pivot Point New England. I think it's a sizable, scalable operation. Right now, we're focused on creating a system to track clients' progress, what it is that you're bringing to each hike, what it is that you're taking away from each hike, where are you at 2 months from now? Have you had an opportunity to take the experience that you've had on the trail and apply it into your own life? We're trying to create a message board and a community group so that we don't need to be a part of it. Like, I'm going to shine that light, and then I'll give you the flashlight. Here's a bunch of other people who told me to go fuck myself too. But now now they're trying to like push themselves and see how far down the Roan Mountain Trail that they can go and how many of those peaks they can hit. And I don't need to be there for that.
Yeah. Here's some extra batteries and
here's a mag light. Like, go nuts.
What how often you're doing this, how much time do you set aside to get for yourself to be outside with your crew, with your homies outside of Pivot Point? Is that something that's
Where's my self-care?
Yeah. Is that still a priority to you?
Yeah, I think lately it comes up that I'm aware that it needs to happen. I think that's a pretty common theme, is I'm aware sooner when I'm neglecting self-care. But I can get, it's sort of the glorification of busy, right? Like, oh man, I got this meeting and then this meeting, and there's 30 minutes in there, and that's enough time to have that phone call. And then, every now and again I look up and I see my, I think that was my chair.
Oh, okay. It sounded like someone was knocking.
Every now and again I'll look up from over my laptop and I'll see my dog like on the bed or something just staring at me, and it's total projection. But like, what I'm seeing when I see that is like, we need to fucking go outside. And I make it a point now to get 3 decent hikes in a week. It's usually me and the dog and one other person. I have to work on that, I guess, because that's really it. I mean, there's opportunities. I joined a cornhole league.
Okay.
Which is shockingly expensive.
Is it?
I think it's because they have a deal with like 2-for-1 drinks where they're hosting it, and I think that's how they're compensating. I mean, either that or the T-shirts are amazing. Mm-hmm. But like, that's an opportunity to engage in I guess, unhealthy taunting and competitive nature. But honestly, like, another benefit of this area, in addition to the mountains and the rivers, is the amount of live music that's here.
Yeah.
So like, even if I'm only getting out 3 times a week, I can afford $10 to go to Gray Eagle and catch pretty much anything that's playing there. And there's something about that energy exchange. It's about energy exchange, right? So like, if that happens on the trail, right on. Like, if I can commune with the mountain and feel the breeze and all that stuff, like, it's gravy. But sometimes what I get is a lap around the neighborhood. Sometimes what I get is no lap and my friends watching my dog. But at the end of the night, I get to go and catch some live music and just feed off that. And like, this stuff, man, I mean, like, I find I haven't really come across something as satisfying as genuine, authentic connection. And
I don't think you will find anything
and
as
that's
fulfilling.
and I don't need. I was joking with someone months ago, like I was in a bad space. I was all worked up about this, that, and the other. And I got in the car. I drove for an hour and 15 minutes. I went to a trailhead that I've never been on before that was super hard. In hindsight, didn't bring nearly enough water. Got up to a lookout that, because of the expectations I had attached to it, was like supremely disappointing, and started to journal, right? Because I needed all of that dramatic stuff to journal. The journal was at my bedside table, and the pen was there too. I just, like, who was I posturing for? Like, what was I trying to prove to who? So like that self-reflection and that awareness, that curiosity, as opposed to that judgment, I don't know. Like, I don't know why it is, but like that's such a new path through life and experience for me that it's outrageously satisfying. So I don't need much. I mean, I get bored easy. So like I will do the cornhole tournament and like let's play cards. I got some poker games. I need Jeremy French to set up the next poker game. But like living authentically is such a new concept to me, or attempting to, that shit, I can do that watching music. I can do that walking around the neighborhood. I can do that on my front porch with a cup of coffee. Like I don't need. I have the opportunity because of how gifted I am with where we live, but I don't need that shit.
Because of the work that you've done, you have the opportunity to live that way in every moment.
It's there. I don't embrace it, but yeah, I have that opportunity. I think one of the mantras that has served me the most in the past couple of years has been to set the intention and to ask for assistance with the intention of walking through every day with an open heart and an open mind. And like I said, like if the possibility of that is even there, then it's all for me, you know. The mountains are great, man. Like we'll do Flat Laurel Creek, and it's like living in a postcard around here. Yeah. It's great, but like that closing my eyes or lighting a couple of candles and sitting on a cushion, like on my rug, I can get there just as easily there, you know. Not always, but it's available.
I appreciate you coming on, bro.
Yeah.
You're a badass.
Oh, right on.
That's 2 hours, man.
For real?
For real. 1 hour and 58 minutes.
Wow.
How about it? Time flies, man. No, that was phenomenal. Tons of wisdom. Like I enjoyed talking with you. How can everybody find Pivot Point? Facebook, website, Instagram, where you at?
Yeah, so it's what is it? It's pivotpointwnc.com is our website. Facebook is, I think it just goes facebook.com/pivotpointwnc. Instagram is the same handle. Contact information is on the website. And
so anybody can call you, book you, set up a thing.
Yeah, like whatever you want to do. So that's a valid thing. This started because my experience began with the power of nature and its role that it could play in a healing modality for people in early recovery. Mm-hmm. And what I was talking about with the thing under the thing under the thing, dude, everybody's in recovery. If you know it or not, or you don't use that word, you're in recovery. You're recovering from something. Maybe you haven't explored the traumas that you experienced, and maybe the word trauma is activating, and that's why you're not, like, whatever, dude. The power and the majesty that happens out in nature, like, doesn't give a shit about what word you use to label your past experience. And to that end, I mean, my flashlight shines on everybody. Like, whoever wants to go and have an experience is what it says on the back of my car. Look for the car.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Have you ever done any trips out west, out this way? Done many?
Have we done any? Part of my like self-work, my self-care stuff has been out here. I can't remember the name of it. It's not Pinnacle Rock.
Pinnacle, yeah.
Pinnacle Park?
Pinnacle Park. Right,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That was one of the first things I did out here. That's a bit of an up.
It is, dude.
That's a bit of an up. I don't know how much that'd be a fun sell. I think.
Yeah, I had never been up there before, and I had a bunch of my friends have. And we're always talking about it, and like I was reading a little bit about it online and stuff. And about 2 weeks ago, I recently, within the last month, started dating a new girl, Bianca. Hey, and she we were like, hey, you want to go? We both had a day off or something. We had some time, and I was like, oh, let's go for a hike.
Yeah.
She has a 5-year-old son. And I was like, okay, let's go check out Pinnacle. Man, we made it like a mile, and like
that's up.
Kid was done. You know,
yeah, I think
like,
you need like another mile before it levels out for a bit. Yeah, and I've done stuff in the Smokies, like a Lum Cave and LeConte, and other kind of spurs and out and backs. To be honest, like because I like to bring my dog with me, it kind of rules out the Smokies, which is a shame, but that's cool. I mean, I admittedly have gone once with the dog because I didn't know that you couldn't. It never occurred to me, and but that place is boundless. But I mean, you can and we're like, I should say this actually also, that we are in the process. We've already submitted our permitting paperwork with the United States Forest Service.
Fantastic.
So between DuPont, we've also applied for permitting there between DuPont and just the 2 regions of Pisgah, like Mount Mitchell side and Lookout side. Dude,
plenty of territory.
I don't have to repeat anything, you know. Yeah. So it's out there, and you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, man. Just have an experience. That's it. That's why it says it on the car, dude. That's what it's about. It's about how can I expand and build upon wherever I'm at, like meeting people where they're at. And maybe with the check-in, you get a better idea of where you're starting from. Yeah.
Now, do you do like an exit deal, any kind of?
We do takeaways. I think my understanding is until I get like training in certain certifications, it's a little tricky to say that, you know, we're doing anything that's similar to processing, but we do takeaways. We unpack the experience at the end as we're going back to the vehicle, and sometimes it's more formalized than at other times. And the beauty with a lot of the houses, though this can go, you know, we kind of do this on a per seat, you know, per button the vehicle rate, but like the beauty of working with the houses is there's some continuity there. So like, you know, if you're doing whatever it is that they expect you to do and you agree to do, then I get to see you for 6 weeks. Yeah. And we can kind of reflect about that time that you told me to go fuck myself.
Solid.
Right.
Real solid. Cool, bro. Well, I appreciate you coming on, dude.
Yeah, this is great, man.
Let's connect again in the future, man. I'd like to maybe hook up and plan a trip or something. And also in January, we're coming over to Making Whole at Jeremy's place.
Okay.
We're going to do like a lunchtime podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And lunch cookout thing that he always does, the lunches. We already set a date. I'll be promoting it and share it, and I'll be sure to share it with you.
Nice.
We'd love to have you.
He's always cooking up good stuff over there. Anyway.
I know. So we're going to do a little lunch podcast over there with him. So
cool.
Thank you guys for tuning in to NCRAW. All of our NCRAW content is available by visiting www.ncraw.life. While you're there, subscribe to the website to receive all current events and our latest shows delivered directly to your inbox. Want to thank today's musical contributor, Rival, whose work can be found on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Facebook by searching Rival 727. Thanks for tuning in. Y'all have an awesome night.